will. I guess so. And then I'll just go. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Just a little bit of history, and as a council member and now as mayor, public safety has consistently been my top priority. It is always the top priority in my budgets. And I have consistently increased funding for police, adding boots on the ground, and ensuring they have the best equipment to do their jobs. Fallout from the pandemic has been one of the factors that has made this a challenging time for all of us, especially our police department and police departments all over the country. We are working on reducing our violent crime in many different ways, and our work is beginning to show signs of progress. Between 2020 and 2021, our overall rate of violent crime has dropped by 4%, thanks to the efforts of our community-focused police department and community partners. While our homicide numbers right now today are below last year's number, we must continue to work to make improvements. One homicide is one too many. So we're working in the mayor's office on gun violence prevention through One Lexington, reaching out to young people who are often involved in these shootings, and we're making progress. This summer, Parks and Social Services will be offering new and expanded programs for our young people. It's very exciting that the flock cameras we're discussing here today are already proving successful. To meet the challenges of the future, we must continue to modernize the tools our law enforcement officers have. We started the flock program off slowly, and we've done our homework. I want to thank the ACLU, the NAACP, and the Human Rights Commission for working with us to make sure we have policies in place that provide the right balance of personal freedoms and safety. Tomorrow is my budget address for fiscal year 23. It will include a proposal to increase funding for the flock cameras, assuming our pilot project continues to be successful. It will also include new funding for other programs designed to engage young people. I want to thank Chief Weathers and the members of the police department for their leadership and hard work. They are committed to making our community safer, as am I. So, Chief, can you tell us a little bit more about flock cameras?
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. The Lexington Police Department is taking part in a pilot program to test the effectiveness of license plate readers in a partnership with Flock Safety, Axon, and the National Police Foundation. As part of the program, Lexington will receive 25 license plate readers for 1 year. These readers will be placed around Fayette County based upon violent crime data reported to us from calls for service by the public over the past 2 years. The license plate readers work by taking multiple images of a vehicle when it drives by. The images are then automatically checked against law enforcement databases to see if the vehicle is wanted, associated with a warrant, an alert, or other notification. These images will not be used for speed or red light enforcement. The goal of the license plate reader program is to assist with solving and reducing crime and to locate and recover missing and endangered people. We met with the NAACP, ACLU, and the Human Rights Commission to discuss the program and any concerns they had. to help us create a policy that would meet the needs of our community. The images and data will only be stored for 30 days. If the images are needed as part of a criminal investigation, the images will be stored in our digital evidence management system. The use of the license plate readers is strictly for legitimate law enforcement and public safety purposes. It is a violation of our policy to use the system for any associated data for personal purposes. Any violation will result in disciplinary action. Our officers are required to enter a reason for any search, and regular audits will be conducted by the Public Integrity Unit to ensure that the policy is being followed. The full policy regarding the license plate reader system can be found on the Lexington Police website page. The license plate readers are currently in the process of being installed. Last week, there were 9 located around Lexington. We anticipate full deployment by the end of May. Again, the selected locations for the system are based on violent crime data that was gathered from calls for service from the public over the last 2 years. This did not include officer-initiated calls for service. Since the 9 readers have been installed, we have already had success in solving some recent cases. One of our earliest successes came shortly after a license plate reader was installed. Nearly 2 months prior, officers had taken a report of domestic violence where the suspect assaulted, strangled, and then threatened the victim with a firearm. The officer filed for warrants that included a description of a vehicle, but at the time, the suspect had not yet been located. After the license plate reader was activated, officers received a hit on the suspect's vehicle and were able to locate it. The suspect was then arrested on the warrants. Some of you may remember a recent animal cruelty case where a deceased dog was discarded into a dumpster. After seeing the story, one of our officers reached out to Lexington Animal Care and Control, who provided a partial license plate and vehicle description from surveillance footage at the scene. The partial plate number was ran through the flock system, and an image containing a vehicle matching the description and a full plate number was received. This resulted in Animal Care and Control being able to speak with the suspect and eventually cite them with animal cruelty. We've also been able to use the system to solve a recent burglary. After burglarizing a residence, the suspect used stolen credit cards at a local store. Officers were able to gather a distinctive vehicle description, a partial license plate number, and match the subject description from the security footage. After running the partial plate number and the flock system, a vehicle was located that matched the description and revealed a complete license plate number. This information was utilized to bring charges against 2 individuals. We hope the use of the license plate readers, through the use of the license plate readers, we will be able to solve crimes quicker and more efficiently. As a result, we hope to see a reduction in crime over time. I would like to open it up for questions. Joining me are Assistant Chief Eric Lowe and Lieutenant Matthew Greathouse, who can help answer any of these questions.
I know you aren't able to discuss exact locations, but would you be able to tell us what general neighborhoods, just so we can show people what this camera looks like? Right now, people are reporting cameras that aren't these block cameras, so I think it is important for us to kind of show them what.
No, I think for integrity of investigations and for officer safety, even giving out general locations of the cameras is not advisable.
Chief, could you tell me what exactly are high crime areas right now in Lexington?
Well, I don't know what high crime areas, because we just use crime that was reported to us, and if they had a certain number maybe, or we looked at which areas were getting the most crime reported, and that's where we put them.
So which areas are getting?
This was just over the 2 years. I don't have that information.
So it's really, it's not one specific location in Lexington. It's areas around Fayette County where we have had higher reported violent crime to us than necessarily other areas. Violent crime isn't in one area of town. It is spread throughout the city. But we looked at the areas with the highest amount of crime in that area to place the cameras.
Which are,
There's several different locations throughout Fayette County.
Is there
that
one
might
location that we can?
Well, you know, over time, that could change, and no, I'm not giving out any locations, so.
Chief, could you tell me why exactly do you think people do not have the right to know where their license plates and therefore movements are being reported around the city and the county?
Well, we're not tracking them like that. They only take pictures. They're not being tracked. If we get a report of a crime, then we enter in to see if it matches the vehicle. So we're only tracking crime. If a crime happens, then we're looking for the vehicle associated with that crime. We're not monitoring people's movements or vehicles.
May I add to that? May I add to that? They're driving on public roads. It's very simple. When you're in the public using public infrastructure, these cameras have every right to be there, and people do not have the right to particular kind of exemption from the license plate readers because they're in public right-of-way.
Because it is a public space.
Yes.
Why do people not have the right to know where they are located publicly?
There's no privacy rights on a public street.
There's currently efforts being made to publicize the locations, like people going around and documenting to LTD accountability where they are. So are you guys opposed to that since it's gonna be done anyway? You'd rather it be done by that way and not the police?
It's a free country. People can do what they want to do, you know. I don't know how accurate they are, though.
I know there are a lot of times where people want to feel like they can come to the police and, I know oftentimes you do these stories, it's like see something, say something, and you can submit anonymous tips. I think some people their way people can still feel like they can trust the police and come to the police knowing that they kind of feel like they're being watched.
Again, they're not being watched. I mean, it's not that kind of a system. So they're not being watched, and we still need people to come forward, and we're still going to make contacts with people to get that information.
I know you said that, high crime rates can change, throughout the time period, and we're still in the process of installing them. Is there a plan to maybe, let's say this is a high location for crime right now, but in a few months down the road, it doesn't become one and then you see another one. Are there plans to maybe install more or move them around based on the data?
Since this is a new system for us, I can't say what our exact plans with respect to that question is, but that is one of the things that can be used for. If it subsides and we need to place the camera someplace else where it's needed, I think we could probably look at that.
I know you mentioned 25, but then you said 9. So are there 9 currently and y'all be getting more or we're getting like this?
Right. As part of the program, we're getting allotted 25 cameras, and they're in the process of installing them. We don't have all 25 yet. As of last week, we had 9.
To my understanding, this is a pilot program that's supposed to last for a year, after which you're supposed to kind of gauge, I guess, the success or not of these cameras. So Mayor, could you tell me why have you already put it in your budget to, I guess, increase funding for these cameras?
So my budget is it will be from July 1st, 22 to June 30th of 23, and the pilot ends before June. I forgot, is it in March or
It'll
April?
be around May.
So the pilot will end before the end of the budget. So if we find that they're successful, which we are already seeing successes, then I want to have the money in the budget so that we can continue them.
And exactly how much money have you earmarked for that?
You'll find out tomorrow during my budget speech.
What other agencies have access to these flock cameras here in the county?
It's tied nationally, so yes, ma'am.
And so does Lexington Police have, I guess, access to other flock cameras in the region?
Yes, ma'am.
So I know that flock safety allows some agencies to have this transparency portal that's available that allows the public to kind of understand or get to see how these cameras work. Does LPD, do you guys plan to, I guess, sign up for that program?
So we are currently in the process of developing an informational document that we could place on our website that has information about our use of the flock safety system to go along with the policy that we have publicly available. We would definitely be open to working with them, taking a look at that and see if that's something that would be appropriate for us.
I know that LPD has current other systems of surveillance in place. What other camera surveillance methods are LPD currently utilizing in the city? Because right now, you know, if you look up, you can see cameras in other cities, but I know that these may not be. Can you explain? Because some people are already reporting cameras that are already there. We just want to know what those are already there for.
Well, again, those would probably be sensitive information for investigative purposes, so I couldn't talk about that. But the biggest camera system we use is our body camera system.
So the public doesn't really have access to the body camera information until the police determines the right time is. So for transparency purposes, how well do you feel like your answer is in terms of telling them what the surveillance is for, where it is?
Here's what I have to tell you about that. Police departments are constantly doing undercover surveillance. We don't tell people when we're doing it or where we are doing it. And as long as we're doing it from a legal point of view, we keep that information to ourselves because it is part of an investigation and it can involve officer safety. So what we do is we don't just rely on that information, on that surveillance information. We try to corroborate as much as we can. So it's not just the surveillance. It's the follow-up investigation after it. And we don't want to compromise the investigation or compromise officer safety.
That makes sense. But just so people are aware, there are mobile surveillance centers already in place.
Like,
In 2017, it was passed. There are reported to be 29 mobile surveillance centers, cameras all across the city. Are there still 29?
I'm not aware of any operated by the police like that.
I'm sorry.
I'm not aware of any operated by the police like that.
What exactly are the benchmarks or the standards you are using to gauge the success of these cameras?
We're looking at how quickly we can solve crime, and we'll look at if there's any kind of reductions associated with that we can link to it.
As of now, are you leaning towards having more than 25 block cameras?
It's too early to tell. We only have 9 up. We'd like to see it.
What's your response to some groups? Because some groups are telling citizens to try to identify these cameras around the county and then to kind of, I guess, create some type of list or sheet of where these cameras are. What's your response to that?
Can't stop them from doing that. But, if the whole reason for us doing it is to reduce crime, I'd like to really think about who's actually being affected by that. You're talking about potential victims and people who have been victims that are being adversely affected by that. I'd like for them to at least consider that.
How much additional safety are you hoping that these cameras do provide?
I hope for 100%, but I'm realistic. What would be a good number? Any amount I would be happy with.
So 3 in the past week that you guys just told us about. Have there been any more successes with flock just in the past week? Or
What
just
about-
those 3?
This morning we had one.
Do you mind
Oh,
coming
sorry.
closer to the camera? I'm sorry.
This morning we did have a recovery of a stolen vehicle. That was a result of a LPR alert, and that happened about 2 hours ago. From this weekend, we were also able to recover 4 stolen vehicles. I'm sorry, 3, a total of 4 as of this morning, just this weekend. And some of those resulted in arrests.
So that's big, right?
I sure think so. We're not even fully implemented with our pilot yet, and we're already starting to see success stories just come in right and left.
Exactly how are you going to ensure that these cameras are not being used for traffic enforcement?
So one, I would say it's against state law. State law currently requires that any traffic violation be witnessed by a police officer. So they're currently not able to be used for that legally. Also, we have spoke to the company about it. The technology that's in place does not have the capability of being used for red light or traffic enforcement.
Now, are these cameras, are they running 24 hours? It's just a continuous feed?
Yes. Well, it's not a live feed of video. They take still images when a vehicle passes by.
Assistant Chief Law, do you know if there are how many other current camera surveillance is being operated across the city?
I don't. No, I don't.
I know you just gave us a few numbers, but is there a solid number that we could say, since you guys set it up, we've been able to, do this many arrests or this many cases because of the surveillance?
So far, what we're tracking 9 success stories from the start of the program. That led to all the cases the chief spoke about just a few minutes ago and the recovery of, I think, 6 stolen vehicles.
Can you speak of how many times you have a partial plate or a plate in an investigation and you aren't able to make an arrest, or where this would actually be a successful program?
Can we take that one? So if we look at what the chief spoke about with the burglary and also the dog cruelty case, those both had partial plates. In traditional ways, we would investigate those either by sending emails or putting bulletins out to patrol to say, hey, have you seen this vehicle? Is there anything you can tell us and just maybe even put out a media blast to, has anybody seen this vehicle? With this, we're able to go in, put on those specific parameters for that plate to see if it is a hit. If it comes back, then if it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. So you're able to take that one thing off your plate and then continue on with your investigation. All this does is just give you a jumping off point to start your investigation. There's still things you've got to make sure eyewitnesses and/or video surveillance is correct and it matches up with people. And there's so many other steps. This is just a way to get started in your investigation, and it makes it so much quicker. It usually would take it, maybe 3, 4, 5 days for partial plates or some of those investigations without anything else coming in to get a lead. A person can log in 5 minutes and they can see if it's there or if it's not.
And then that probably frees you up for addressing other crime, right?
100%, yes.
And can you talk a little bit about that data? So everybody's license plate is put into that sheet, and then you're searching through that, and then if you get a hit, it comes out, then you actually get to view the data? Or
So as Assistant Chief Loeb talked about, it takes still images of vehicles as they pass by. So it's reading the license plates of those vehicles, and those vehicles are then stored into that database for 30 days, which we're then able to search. So if that plate, whatever combination you're trying to put in doesn't exist, then it will never pop up.
and is that stored on the server here in Lexington, or is that stored in the server somewhere else?
That's part of the company. They actually take care of the storage management.
Doesn't the police department have any plans, I guess, of releasing to the public, when these cameras are, I guess, when they help lead to an arrest in a particular investigation?
I'll let you take that one.
I don't know if we'll release every time one's done. Surely, if it's a high-profile case that it helps with, and we think it's prudent, we'll release it.
Is there anything you can say, Chief, to alleviate some concerns? There's concerns always on social media, but just coming from the chief, just a nice, you don't have to worry or something like that.
In our policy, this is not used for just general surveillance. All that's going in there are license plates that are involved in some kind of criminal activity or some kind of missing or wanted person. That's all that's going into that. So if your car or your vehicle is not involved in criminal activity, it's not going to be tracked like that. And all it does is take pictures, and if the picture matches what was entered in that was involved in some kind of law enforcement act or law enforcement nexus or criminal nexus, then that's what the alert's going to be. But just you running out to the grocery store and doing that, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for crime. We're looking for people that commit crime, and we're looking for people that might be lost or endangered. And I think that's very important.
Are there efforts to kind of try and conceal these cameras? I mean, will they be camouflaged? You can't see them just...
We don't put them up; the company puts them up. So they're there. I mean, that's part of it. We want people to know that we're doing it. And like I said before, it's really not advantageous, safety or investigative wise, to let people know where they are. But if they think they see one, then they think they see one.
like to add, Chief, to reassure the public, I know we're like trying to get, where and where, and I think that it's important that people at least feel like, you guys at the end of the day are just here to help.
We're not the only city in the country doing it. It's been around for a little bit, so I don't know of any adverse privacy issues that have sprung up for it. But if you go to some of the bigger cities, especially Chicago and New York, places like that, there's surveillance cameras operating all the time. So this is Lexington moving into the future, and that's what we have to do to keep up with some of the activities that we see.
Is there any provisions about the data being used by Flock for other things, like metadata, just how much people are driving around the city, that kind of stuff?
I don't think so. No.
They don't have direct access to go and compile our data and use it for their purposes. It's our data.